Hello, dear listener. Welcome Under the Fog of War. Thank you for tuning into this channel. You are listening to the third podcast of the series dedicated to Iran. Hope you will enjoy it. After publishing first two podcasts of this series, I have received several requests to expand a little more on geography and history prior to the period I am going to describe. I agree that the subject is very diverse and requires a lot of background information, especially when it comes to names, locations, and events. And I am happy to oblige. I believe first I need to expand on definitions of Iran and Turan. Iranian medieval mythology ascribes these two names to royal brothers Ir and Tur, sons of legendary Shah Fereydun, the ruler of the world. The origin is more prosaic. It is believed that Aryans of Iran had migrated to Iranian plateau 4,000 years ago from the flatlands of Central Asia, or what they later started calling Turan. That vast expanse of semi-arid steppe was only suitable to support nomadic form of life. Aryans of Iran had settled and built a great civilization. Aryans of Turan remained wild, and the two ended up battling each other. Turkic people migrating from Siberia a few millennia later have assimilated the region, and the battle continued. By pure coincidence, their tribal name was phonetically similar to the name of the region, and that gave rise to the association, preserving the ancient name of Turan, but this time with new meaning. Anyway, like everything else in the country, Iran versus Turan is yet another story of the struggle of opposites. More on geography. On this interactive map, I will show you most prominent geographical and political features of Iran. Up in the northwest, it is limited by Araz River that flows from west to east and discharges into the Caspian Sea. That is a boundary stipulated in the Turkmenchai Treaty of 1828, as a result of which Iran had lost its core lands in the Caucasus. Regions of Darband, Shirvan, Karabakh, and Mugan, ceded to Russia as a result, lay north of that river. All of these will be featuring prominently in later podcasts. On the opposite side of the Caspian Sea, we can see Atarak River, a boundary between Iran and Turan. Oases of Marv and all the remaining territories immediately north of the river have been gradually abandoned by Iran to Turkmen tribes. Further south, another irrecoverable loss, province of Herat. Coming to regions. This is Azerbaijan, with its center in Tabriz, and this is Kurdistan. Further south are central provinces of Tehran, Qom, and Isfahan. Fars, with its capital in Shiraz, is here. On the other side of Zagros range, we have Lorestan, land of Lurs, and Khuzestan, that have largest Arab population of Iran. Southern shore of the Caspian is lined with jungles of Mazandaran and Gorgan. This is Great Khorasan, the land where the sun is rising, with Mashhad as its capital. In the north, it is facing Turan across Atrak River. In the east, it is limited by Hindu Kush and the province of Herat. Yazd and Kerman are here. That is Balochistan. Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges are here. First one runs down south, while the other one recedes to the east. Central part and the southeast corner are dominated by Dasht-e Kavir and Dasht-e Lut deserts. This then is the famous Strait of Hormuz. Moving over to the history preceding the period we will be looking at. Here, I am giving a brief timeline of Iranian states and civilizations. Without going into too much detail and depth, the basic historical timeline of Iran should look like this. Imperial line of Achaemenids is the most ancient one. Strange enough, characters based on one of them are the most used by the modern pop culture. It was the army of Xerxes the Great, the fourth Achaemenid king of kings, that fought against the famous Spartan king Leonidas and his 300 warriors. Just an episode in the epic career of the empire, in modern times the Battle of Thermopylae and the last stand of Spartans has been portrayed as a struggle of good against evil, virtue against degradation, freedom against slavery, progressive West against tyrannical East. Well, nothing could be further from the truth, but that is a subject of its own. Back to the timeline. Greeks under Alexander the Great destroyed Achaemenid power in 330 BCE. That brought a long spell of Hellenistic influence that lasted long into the reign of Parthians. The latter held power for nearly 5 centuries, until in 224 CE, Persian dynasty from province of Pars wrestled the crown of the realm from them. Empire of Eran-Shahar that Sasanians of Pars had established then is what I consider the golden age of Iran. It falls after 420 years under blows of the Islamic conquest, and for staggering 850 years after that, Iran loses its Iranian identity. All this time, the country was a part of a succession of non-Iranian states. Caliphate gave way to Seljuks, who in their turn succumbed to Mongols, whose remnants were swept away by Uzbeks under Amir Timur. Within this time, there were periods in 9th and 10th centuries when ethnic Iranians independently ruled large portions of Sasanian heritage, yet they either derived their authority and legitimacy from non-Iranian sources or had no notion of ethnic identity. Obviously, it is not right to assume that for all this time, Iran was just a passive witness to the kaleidoscope of events taking place around it. On the contrary, it played a pivotal role in the way states and nations existing on its soil took shape and developed. As a minimum, we should not forget its contribution to human civilization throughout this time. The world as we know it today owes much to Iranian artists, philosophers and scientists that flourished during that troubled period of history. And yet, all that was taking place under non-Iranian banners, until finally in 1501 Shah Ismail Safavi had established what later became known as the guarded domain of Iran. That signaled the rebirth of the national idea, all-inclusive and all-Iranian nation-state. So who were the Safavids and what have they done differently? That we will explore in the next podcast. Hope you have enjoyed it. Please subscribe, comment, or like as you see fit. All questions, suggestions, or requests for additional podcast content are welcome.